Hi, I'm Sonia Jante.
Hi, I'm Kimberly Lane.
Hi, I'm Tom Henschel.
Together, we're unlocking leadership. We are three experienced executive coaches with very different disciplines. In every episode, we take a question from a real client and provide key insights to address their challenge from our three different perspectives. It's a holistic approach to understand challenges and opportunities. Let's get to it. Our question today is from Sejal in Portland. She states, a peer of mine seems clueless about how people are responding to her. I'd like to help her, but don't know how to do it appropriately. Kimberly, what are your thoughts?
Thanks, Sonia. Sejal, great question, and thanks for reaching out to us today. I'll give you three things to consider. First, if she's not really aware how other people are responding to her, so you might want to consider being sensitive, because if you immediately address that issue with her, she might be feel threatened or maybe even feel defensive. So being a little sensitive as how you present that issue to her might be the first recommendation. Secondly, a way to do that would be to kind of ask her if you're really good friends with her, is there a problem that she has expressed to you several times that she's challenged with? For example, is she feeling that there's a lot of time people are not responding to her correctly or not listening to what she has to say, or when she speaks up, nobody really gives her any commentary? So I guess I would just sit and think, is there a problem that she has expressed to you that might be solved by addressing the initial concern here?
And that's a great idea. I just want to say, I love that idea. That's great.
Yeah, because then it's kind of like we're all defensive, right? So by pointing fingers at people, especially if she's not aware of what's going on or the issue, it really put her on the defense, right? And then third, I would say, that good old 360-degree assessment, maybe enlist yourself and her as a team and decide, hey, wouldn't it be fun just to get some feedback on how we're perceived by everybody else? And that 360-degree feedback gives the feedback from your subordinates, from peers or colleagues, and from those higher up. And from there, she would definitely get some clarity as far as what's going on and how other people are perceiving her. So those are my thoughts.
It's interesting because the 360 piece that you just mentioned ties into something that I was concerned about when I read Sejal's question. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I wondered was, Sejal, do you have permission to speak for others? Like, whoa. I mean, and look, maybe you've got the inside scoop, but are you going to go to this colleague of yours and go, people are very upset with you? At which point, what if she says, who? Give me an example. Like I can't pay any attention to this if you don't tell me who. Oh my gosh, then you're in a stew, right? But if it's a 360, like Kimberly suggested, then it's open, it's above board, it's great. People really get invested in it. I would ask one other question of Sejal. She starts by saying, I have this peer who's clueless about how people are responding to her. And I would simply say to you, Sejal, how do you know she's clueless? Maybe she goes home every night and talks to her dog about it, right? I mean, who knows? Or by the way, maybe she's got something like Kimberly, like, I can't get people to, respond to me. And she understands what the issue is, but maybe not what the cause is. So you don't know where her knowledge is. And I just want to say, Sejal, as you approach this person with caution, as Kimberly said, you don't know what she knows. So be inquisitive, be curious. Ask her what she thinks about this event, this whatever.
Yeah,
go ahead, Sonia.
I was going to say, Tom, I agree with you that one has to really look at the context of the situation, because, is Sejal in every single meeting or in every single situation that this peer is in? And potentially it just doesn't play well in the meetings she's attending, but it may play well in others. One of the things that I learned from one of my teachers was that we tend to do what works for us, and we think that we're strong at that. And so we lose awareness when we're overplaying our strengths, because an overused strength becomes a weakness. So I'm just wondering whether there is some approach or tactic or strategy that this peer has that works in some cases and doesn't in some others. And potentially that's where the cluelessness comes in. She's not reading her audience. She's not recognizing that the situation has changed. I think the other thing to look at is, what is the culture in the organization? I'm seeing that there are more cultures today that are focused on growing and developing and being open and safe with feedback. And if that's the case, then potentially you can use a concept or a value that the organization has as part of its core culture.
Oh, that's a great idea.
It's like, let's make everybody better. Or potentially, I mean, and this is, again, you have to be very, very cautious about this. I always think that, HR can be an ally because they do have tools and they do have information. And so potentially this Sejal could go to HR and say, I want to practice some giving feedback skills. And I was thinking of trying a couple of approaches. Do you have any recommendations for me? Because sometimes it's like, I have a sister that's extremely high on emotional intelligence. And so she would always sort of like start by telling me like a story and that, I heard, but it was really about me. But it was like, so then I got interested in the story. And then I was like trying to like say, oh, do I do that? So then it moves you into asking questions, as Tom said, being curious.
That idea that you have about tools for communication, I was thinking of two in a slightly different way, which was, look, you may decide to, I'm talking to Sejal now, this idea that you may decide to do this. I want to say, if you do, rehearse.
Yes.
Don't do it for the first time in real time with the real person, because it's hard and it's awkward. And by the way, you don't know what somebody's going to say back to you and all that. So yeah. Oh, I'm glad to see both of you, Kimberly and Sonia. You're both nodding like crazy.
Absolutely.
Just kind of taking a different perspective, though, and you kind of touched on this too. Sejal, this might be something that bothers you for whatever reason, but maybe your peer or colleague, it doesn't bother her, or she doesn't feel she has an issue. Like I said, she doesn't feel like she has a problem with anything. And unless it's really affecting the outside culture or the outside team or, the organization, that's why that whole context comes into play. And hence what Sonia just mentioned about learning how to give constructive feedback or feedback that will institute change for the better for everybody, right? So it's really, I think you have to ask some questions to yourself in addition to really being sensitive about how you're going to inquire about your friend. So,
it's funny. I had an experience recently where a meeting was facilitated by a guy, and the meeting was a disaster. And within 24 hours, I heard from 6 people at that meeting going, that meeting was horrible and did not have to be that bad. And he has to stop that. So I was like, okay, I got it. I will give him the feedback. And I call him up and we're on the phone and I go, hey, people were, actually, I started with a question. What did you think of that meeting? And he thought it was great.
Wow.
And I said, well, can I just tell you, others didn't. And he was like, well, they're wrong. And I was like, oh, I see. Okay, then we can't go any further, right? It's like not my job to coach this guy.
Right.
So it was like, oh, wow, that was really interesting. He just was not open to the feedback at all. And maybe, Sejal, maybe that would happen to you.
Yeah, it is possible. Based on what you just described, Tom, I would say that when there is that discrepancy with the people that were there, like they were in 2 different meetings, the person who's satisfied was probably very much in tell mode. And so they were happy because they got all their content out.
Actually, no, by the way, this guy happens to be incredibly thoughtful. So he won't put structure on the meeting.
Oh, so that's what, so it was, people were aware that their time was not being utilized correctly.
Yep.
That's okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you for clarifying that.
Because some people do like structure, and then having a meeting that goes willy-nilly he might have just felt that was a very open conversation and really objective was defined and needed. But there's those who like structure that felt nothing was accomplished, right? So it's just knowing your audience and who's attending and set things up for success, right?
Yes. This goes into my specialty about the brain and the fact that people that are left brain tend to be a little bit more cautious and careful about how they use their time and don't want to see it wasted. And people who are very right brain, very empathetic, very creative, tend to feel like we're just getting started. Let's just have a conversation. So their connection to time is very different. And potentially, Sejal, for the person that you're thinking is clueless, maybe you're more of a right brain or a left brain person. And so what you're seeing in terms of the way that person's engaging doesn't go to your sweet spot, doesn't go to the area that you're really primarily comfortable in. So it could feel very insensitive, and that's why she potentially is clueless.
Yeah, like it's kind of we tend to be very disgruntled with others in the same thing that we're probably most disgruntled with ourselves. So it's almost you're seeing yourself in a mirror, right? So I mean, there's so many ways we can go through this, but it's just really being maybe observing the situation several times and being a little sensitive to how you approach it, right?
Yeah, I just wanted to give a quick shout out because this is ultimately about feedback, right? Douglas Stone and Sheila Heen, who are co-authors on Difficult Conversations, wrote this book called Thanks for the Feedback that's so helpful. Oh my goodness. So if you really want to wade in, Sejal, I just want to say there's tons of tools for you in this book, and it's friendly and funny and easy to read and really, really helpful.
Yeah. So potentially one of the last pieces that I want to contribute is that she needs to potentially think through whether the areas where this peer is clueless could be career limiting. Because if it is career limiting to the person versus just annoying to somebody else, it's worth pitching in, but pitching in a way that helps. So that's where I go to the big guns, go to HR, go to the ask, thank you for the feedback, go to the tools, because that person will be forever grateful that at that particular point in time in their career and their life, you gave them information or you helped information reach them that actually made a difference.
And we all, I think, wish we had a friend at work who would look out for our best interests, right? And help us see our blind spots. So Sejal, I think you're doing a fantastic job in really bringing this question to us and trying to help your friend out. So we'd like to say thank you for your question today. We hope you and our viewers and our listeners gain new insights on how to help someone become more self-aware. To our listeners, if you like the content we shared with you today, please like this episode and also share and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Unlocking Leadership, Ask the Coaches. If you do have a leadership question or would like to reach out to our coaches, please find our contact information and website in the show notes. Thanks for joining us today. Tune in next time to find the keys to unlocking your best leadership.
Bye.
Bye.